Gotta turn on my mic. Gotta turn on my mic. Got to turn on my mic. Okay. Are we in there? Let's see. Okay, we should be in there. Okay. All right, welcome. Just getting started. This is my second live stream, so I'm a little bit rusty. I'm trying to get this down, so excuse me for not having my mic ready. But this live stream, this is Seahawks Magic. My name's Kevin Collier. I'm a big-time Seahawks fan. Right, go Hawks. And I know, man, being a Seahawks fan, we are really feeling some type of way about our offensive line. And I want to proposition you that we don't need to be all that worried. Now, I know that's hard to accept. I know that's hard to accept. You go, come on, man. Come on. We shouldn't be worried about it after what we've been through. Yeah. I am worried too. At least I was worried. But I'm stick with me. Just stick with me. Because I'm gonna try to talk you off the ledge, right? I know a lot of us are ready to jump and we're real concerned, and that concern is valid. It's a valid concern, but I think that we're definitely headed in the right direction, and I think the wizard, John Schneider, is going to fix this, right? So, being a Seahawks fan, you remember the Super Bowl years? I didn't, myself, I don't know about y'all, but I didn't think we had really good offensive lines back then. And so this has been a problem for a while, right? Because when we had Russell Wilson, a lot of times it didn't seem like we had good pass blocking. And mostly that was because Russ would run sideline to sideline, purposely getting defenders to chase him behind the line of scrimmage, right? He'd be going sideline to sideline. And then at the same time, the secondary would kind of, chase him sideline to sideline, and it would rip these giant holes in the secondary. And then he'd just throw these moon balls over to the top to Doug Baldwin and Golden Tate. And every time, Russ was running sideline to sideline like that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long bomb. This is going to be a touchdown or a catch every time. I was like confident in that. And so it turns out, like when you look at the pass block win rate, that the Seahawks had a pretty good, a decent pass blocking. But then even during our Super Bowl run, our 2 years with those Super Bowl runs, our run blocking, I didn't think that was great either. And in fact, it actually cost us the second Super Bowl. We didn't have confidence in our offensive line, and that's why I think that's what it looks like to me, that's why we decided to go with a pass play, because we didn't have ultimate confidence in our offensive line when we most certainly should have. And I remember watching the games and thinking, in the future, if they say that the Seahawks had good run blocking, that's BS. Because Marshawn Lynch was getting smacked behind the line of scrimmage. He was dropping defenders and running people over and stiff-arming linebackers behind the line of scrimmage and putting them in the dirt, and then running for 3, 5, and 7 yards downfield. And so I didn't think we really had good pass blocking during those years until maybe it was the end of the season and into the playoffs. And then it was like, the offensive line coach really started to coach them up, and those guys would be road grading and running downfield and road grading, knocking guys over like bowling pins downfield. So, it took a while. It took a long time for our offensive lines, even during the Super Bowl run, to actually get pretty good. But it wasn't like we had a good offensive run blocking for the entire season. And so let's also remember, one reason why we don't have a lot of confidence in our offensive line and what John Schneider can do is because we heard John basically say that He's given up hope on having dominant offensive guards that they barely exist, and he's never going to take a chance in overpaying for one, right? And you hear that, you go, so John, you're telling me that you're not going to take a chance to overpay for a guard. You don't even really think there's great guards really even exist, which is kind of true. So you find it very unimportant. You find like this guard situation unimportant, which, as Seahawks fans, we're all like, oh my goodness. Now we know this is a problem because of what you said. And then we had, what was his name? Who was the offensive line coach? What was his name? Can't remember offhand. But basically, he's the one. Let me see if I can find this on here. Now, I can't remember his name. Anyways, he was the guy, he was our offensive line coach when we went to the Super Bowl. And he was basically saying that you could pull a guard, or you could just take a big guy off the street and you could coach him up and have him play guard and he could be a good guard because it's not about skill, it's about mentality. And I think John Schneider internalized that. He goes, "Oh, I get it now." So, no wonder I've been whiffing on these guards because I've been looking at this game tape and talking to the coaches, but it's more mentality. And since you really can't, figure that out, it's real hard to figure it out. It's almost like John Schneider gave up hope. And then we sense as fans like, whoa, John, you gave up hope. Now we gotta give up hope in you that you can put this together based on your own words. Right? So let's go back to last year, right, in this offensive line. Just so you know that I'm with you that John Schneider we have good reason not to trust him at all to ever build a strong offensive line. And, going back to last year, we brought in Laken Tomlinson from the Jets. I know when I watched the film on him and just reading the reports on him, I go, oh, I don't want him on my team. I don't want him to be our left guard for the Seahawks. I don't want him blocking for us. Maybe he could be a backup. That'd be okay, I guess. But really, even then, I don't even want him as a backup, but whatever. As a starter, no. Anthony Bradford, he hasn't shown as much. I didn't like him coming in. Yeah, maybe in 2 or 3 years, going back for last year, I'm like, he could probably got it in him, but it's going to take him to develop to be, starter worthy. But even then, is he going to be a good starter? Is he going to be above average? I don't know. Maybe not. Christian Haynes, we brought him in to, basically to start. And you're saying he doesn't have the strength? They said Christian Haynes coming in at right guard didn't even have the strength? And you didn't have somebody better in place to start ahead of him? Like, this is a major problem. And then, we got Sateo Lumea. Is that how you say it? Sateo Lumea. He was horrible at pass blocking, and his run blocking was better than a lot of other guys, but it wasn't spectacular. I can't say it was good. It just wasn't horrible. He wasn't a horrible run blocker. And so I'm looking at this with all these guards, and last year they just weren't good at all. And then Oluwatimi, I think he was a guard, but we moved him to center because Connor Williams, we brought him in. Connor Williams was actually pretty good when healthy. And we brought in Connor from Miami, but he had the ACL injury, and he came back probably a little bit too soon. He wasn't ready. At his age, it probably needed a little bit more time to develop, but we rushed him in there to start, and he was hiking the ball over Geno's head and cost us a game. So we started Oluwatimi at center, and he seemed okay. He was better. He was better, but I can't say he was good. But then, of course, it's hard to tell because his guards around him weren't very good. And then our tackles, we got Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, and we got Cross on the left. I love Charles Cross. He's a good left tackle when healthy, but the last two seasons he's been dinged up. He's got this knick-knack foot injury, and he wasn't good last year. I think he was a below-average starter. He wasn't bad. He just wasn't good. And then Abe Lucas, I mean, he had knee surgery, 3 years later, 4 years later. We still don't know what that injury was. What was his knee injury? I don't know. We never hear any reports on that. That's fine. But we can't trust that his knee is going to be strong. Now, I hope he comes in this year, and I hope he's healthy. I hope Charles Cross is healthy, so our tackle spots are secure. But last year, they were both question marks, and so it was horrible coming into this. We had a horrible situation for our offensive line. And then Stone Forsythe, right? Now, that's one of the greatest names in left tackle history, right? You want your offensive lineman named Stone Forsythe. I think that's like half the reason we signed him. And the other half was because he's like 6'8" and 340 or something. He's like a giant refrigerator on that offensive line. Like, he looks the part. He'd be great like in a movie. He's like the perfect, he looks the part of an offensive lineman, but he's got the slowest feet perhaps in Seahawks history, man. He just can't move his feet. He's just too slow. And, that being said, he actually was a pretty good swing tackle for us last year. I thought he was, when he came in for Abe Lucas, he showed major improvements from the 2 years before. So shout out to Stone Forsythe, but I don't really want him on my team either, right? So we came in with this crazy offensive line situation, and then had to nerve to bring in an offensive line coach and offensive coordinator. We talked about that yesterday, and offensive coordinator with no NFL coaching experience to really double down on we don't give a damn about our offensive line. Like, that's how I feel. It almost feels like John Schneider goes, well, there's not many good guards, and I really, offensive line, offensive line, I don't really even care that much. So even when we won the Super Bowl, it wasn't that good. So we don't need it. And we keep having winning records with shaky offensive lines. So it's not his thing. It's like, it seems like with John Schneider, based off of history and the things that he says, that he's not really interested in building a dominant offensive line. I know that, and you know that. I know you know that because it's obvious, right? It's painfully clear. It's self-evident. And so I'm saying all this to say that I've got the same doubts as everybody else. I do. I've got the same doubts as everybody else. But I also hold a conflicting opinion. Sometimes I can hold two opinions at the same time that conflict. As much as I don't trust John Schneider, as much as I know that he's not interested in building a dominant offensive line, I also think he's going to do it this year. I think he's going to take the steps to massively improve our offensive line, and that we're going to see a big jump in production out of our guards, center, and tackles. I believe that. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong on this, and maybe it's just some of it is wishful thinking, I have to admit, but stick with me. Because I want to make sense of what John Schneider's doing, right? I want to make sense of what the wizard John Schneider is doing. So let's go back to last year. Pete Carroll, he was not fired. He wasn't fired. He was transferred from the front office, from as head coach into the front office, right? We bring in Grubb. Then we bring in Ryan Grubb, and we bring in Jay Harbaugh, right? Them two had no NFL experience. That's crazy, right? But you got to understand that we brought in, Grubb, no offensive experience. Scott Huff, our O-line coach, had no offensive experience, no NFL experience. We brought in Zach Hill and Tyson Prince with no NFL experience. These are all coaches on a roster. I made a video yesterday about this. You should go watch it. Jay Harbaugh, special teams coordinator, no NFL experience. Rob Caprice, NFL, he's a defensive intern. Of course, an intern's not going to have experience, but he had no experience. And Chris Partridge, our outside backers coach out of Michigan, he had no NFL experience, right? That's 2 out of 3 coordinators and 7 coaches total out of what, 28 to 30 coaches on your roster? Like a quarter of your coaches have no NFL experience? Why is that? Why is that? It's because he's going to go out. He vetted those coaches. He fired some of them coaches. Harbaugh's still on the roster. Go watch my video from yesterday about that. It's pretty good. Basically, he's taking these coaches and he's trying to reproduce what he had with Pete Carroll. With Pete Carroll, what he had was he had a coach who came out of USC, who had massive success at USC, was a master recruiter. So when Pete Carroll came, he knew players that could be great NFL prospects, the ones that played for, that he coached against, but also that were on his team, but also players that weren't on his team, that coached at other players, that played at other places. So this is why, he knew Doug Baldwin was going to be good. He believed in Richard Sherman. He believed in Marshawn Lynch. Well, in that same way, we've got all these new coaches that came that never coached in the NFL and spent a lot of time in the living rooms of these high school players and watch these kids play in college, and who have intimate knowledge of these players. And now they're on our coaching staff. At least they were last year. And John Schneider is going to vet these guys and talk to them about what players could we draft, or that could come in that we could sign as undrafted rookie free agents who have a high ceiling, right? Who are solid dudes that are going to be overlooked. And I'm fully confident that John Schneider brought in all those coaches with no NFL experience. Some of it is definitely because they knew Ryan Grubb's offense and they could come in and help him. And they knew McDonald's defense, so they could come in and help them. But also he wanted them because they had intimate knowledge of these high school and college players that he could then pluck out of the NFL draft and put on the Seahawks roster. So I think Schneider is positioned to pull major talent, and including offensive linemen out of the draft. He probably got some 4th and 5th round offensive linemen that probably aren't rated that high, but because he was talking to what's his name? Not Grubb. Who is it? Yeah. No, Scott Huff. He probably talked to Scott Huff before we fired him. Who's these linemen you think that could be good on the Seahawks, man, that could be a good offensive lineman that are going to get overlooked? And Huff was like, oh, I got some guys for you, coach. Probably gave him, 4 or 5 players. And Schneider kind of tucked that away. He tucked that away, goes, oh, well, some of these guys probably won't get drafted. I'll be the first ones to sign them if they go undrafted. Some of these guys I'll draft in the later rounds. People won't even hardly know who they are, but I'm going to get them. I think I know that's what's going to happen. I know for a fact that's what's going to happen. And I think it's going to work. So not only is Schneider positioned to pull major talent, including offensive linemen, out of the NFL draft, because he's a really good GM. He's got a good scouting staff, and his track record recently has been very good. And now he's got more coaches with college and high school experience on his team from this year and last year to bring in even more talent out of this draft. I mean, that's huge. But then also remember that during training camp, coming up in June, in July, that there's going to be talented but expensive players that other teams' GMs are going to want to trade rather than cut, kind of like a Chris Averill. And we might be able to, trade, maybe a player or two or a draft pick or two for a spendy guard or a spendy center who's highly talented. And because we have the cap space to be able to sign one, we'll just go that route instead of paying for a guard that in free agency that he didn't really even feel like was that good and was way too expensive, and we'd have to sign him for too many years. See, Schneider is putting us in a perfect position to put a strong offensive line together. I think this is what's going to happen, right? The way John's constructed this roster, we're going to have plenty of cap space to make a trade for a guard or a center, or maybe two or three players maybe on that offensive line between now and the start of the season. I don't think we're going to make 3 trades for offensive linemen, but I definitely think we're going to make at least 1 and maybe 2. So between that and the draft, I think we're going to be in a great position. Between that and the draft and signing undrafted rookie free agents, I think he's going to do a masterful job of bringing in a new offensive lineman. So sure, the offensive line is still a mess. It's still a mess. And we've regressed at wide receiver and probably at quarterback too. But we got to remember that the gumbo is still on the stove and it's not finished. They got to let that pot simmer, right? Let them flavors come out. Let those vegetables start to tenderize. Let that meat get tender. Let the vegetables start breaking down and getting soft so they're easier to eat in your gumbo. So we just got to be patient and give it time. So when it comes to being patient and just being patient, we also got to remember we got players coming back. Think about this too. We got Lucas. We got Charles Cross, left tackle. He's been nicked up. Got this foot injury. I think it's back-to-back years it's been the same foot, right? At least this year. I think it was a foot the year before too. Maybe he strengthens it. He gets it healed. He really concentrates and maybe gets it worked on and prehabs or rehabs that foot injury, and now it's strengthened and he's ready to go for the rest of the season. Maybe this is the year he really gets to unlock his. He's more healthy, so he can unlock his potential. Right? We bring in a new guard, whoever we bring in to replace to replace Lincoln Tomlinson. He's probably going to be a strong candidate. He's probably going to be an upgrade over Lincoln Tomlinson. I think that's going to be true. Um, Oluwatimi at center. He's automatically going to be better than last year just because that experience that he has. He's got more experience, important experience. His body's going to develop. He's really going to understand what he needs to do this offseason to keep his job. He knows his job is on the line. So he's going to be better. You know that Anthony Bradford's going to be better, right? He's going to be at right guard. He's at right guard right now at least, and he gained valuable experience last year. He too knows that his job's on the line, and he's got to put in work in like never before. And he's going to, with that experience is going to help him. That maturity over the year, with all that experience is going to help him. He's going to be better than last year. And then look at our right tackle, right? Abe Lucas. He had that surgery. He came back. Was he our best tackle? At times, Lucas looked like he was better than Charles Cross because of Cross's injury. Lucas looked pretty dang good at times when he was semi-healthy. We'll say that. So with his offseason to recover, to strengthen that knee, to really, put in the type of work that he wasn't able to do because his knee is finally at full health, right? He's been showing videos of him on blocking sleds, and so he's going to be better. And he might be healthy for the whole season. If we could get a healthy Lucas, even at like 85% for an entire season, and then with Bradford or whoever else coming in and the help that's coming, and we're definitely, these rookies that are coming, and I'm certain we're going to make a trade for a guard between now and the end of the season. We're going to get a veteran guard. Somebody's going to pop up, and we're going to have the cap space, and they're going to look and go, you know what? I want to play for the Seahawks. People seem to love the head coach. They got a great culture. The Seahawks are known to have a great culture. I'm coming to Seattle. So I'm highly confident that Schneider's going to put something together, and our offensive line is going to be much improved over last year. So I just want to talk guys off the cliff so we're not so worried that it's just going to be another failing year on that offensive line, and particularly on the inside of our offensive line and in our guard and center spots. I think better days are ahead, and they're immediately ahead. Week 1 or game 1, week 1 of this NFL season, the Seahawks offensive line is going to be much improved. And then how that's going to unlock our running backs, man. Oh my goodness. Our tailbacks are finally going to have holes where they're not getting smacked behind the line of scrimmage so much, where they're 3 and 5 yards downfield while they're starting to get first contact. And now the defense has to throw an extra man in the box to deal with that running game, and it starts to unlock the passing offense. Not to mention, we got a new offensive coordinator who actually knows what he's doing, who has plenty of experience and is known to commit to the run. I am highly optimistic about our offensive line and this offense this season. I'm not really worried anymore. I'm not worried anymore. I see it now. I see John's master plan. Going back to last year, man, I'm the only one I know who talks about this. I'm the only one I know who talks about this, and I think it's weird. I've talked to other Seahawks fans about this. I'll talk to these podcasters about this, about like, what are your thoughts on the Seahawks hiring 7 coaches, including our offensive coordinator and our special teams coordinator, and they have 0 years of combined NFL coaching experience or playing experience. 7 coaches? What are your thoughts on that? That they go, I don't know. You don't know. I don't know, but you got to give me something more than that. Give me something more than that. And so I had to think about it. Like, what is that? What is that? There's no way you bring in 7 coaches on your staff with 0 years of NFL experience, except unless it's a reason. And the more I thought about it, I go, oh, he's reproducing the process that he had with Pete Carroll. Because when Pete Carroll came in, he coached college football for a long time at USC, and they already knew of players that weren't going to get drafted or were going to be undervalued by the scouts. And so we were able to pluck them out of the draft, and some of them became all pros, soon to be Hall of Famers, and Super Bowl winning talented players. And Schneider's going to do that again. I can see it. I can see it. And now that you hear it, maybe at first, the first time you hear it, you go, come on, man. Like, I hear what you're saying, but it sounds a little bit too far-fetched. I get that. It probably does. You go, yeah, I hear you, but come on, man. He's going to pull all pros. Yeah, why not? Why not? He did it before, right? 7 coaches? Come on, man. That's a lot of coaches on your staff that are seeing NFL talent in the NFL system. And he goes, what players do you think that could fit into this system? And they go, well, let me share you with some guys that I'm thinking, because I was thinking about this. And you got 7 coaches. That might be 20, 30 players. It's not just 1 coach or 2 coaches, 7 coaches. So that gives you a plethora, a large number, a pool of under-scouted talent that John Schneider now has access to. And with that boatload of picks that we have in this 2025 draft, and John knows what he's doing, nobody can say John Schneider's not good in the draft. Now, we have some problems, man. Let's be real. We have problems. Like, what made us think, because they said, well, we had so much success in the draft and we had established starters that instead of drafting for more starters, we started drafting for backups. What? The Seahawks, John Schneider and Pete Carroll started drafting for backups instead of starters? A, why would you do that? B, why are you telling people this? Do you know that sounds crazy? You're admitting this post hoc after it didn't work? Now, don't do that anymore. John, don't do that anymore. Don't make yourself sound like that. I love you to death, John. You could be, according to me, you could be the GM for the Seahawks forever, okay? That's how I feel about it. Same with Pete Carroll. I never wanted him to go. I am a Pete Carroll fanboy, if that's what you want to call it. I didn't want him to go. But when you say stuff like that, I go, oh, man, maybe so, man, because you bet you're drafting for backups. We don't want them too talented. We don't want them legitimately challenging the starters. And how'd that work out for us? We had some horrible drafts. And then trading back too much, that was the issue. But, really think about that. Maybe we start trading back this year because of those college coaches on our staff, giving them player information. So now we know, oh, we got more talent that we can choose from. We need more picks. So maybe Schneider's trading back philosophy comes back to fruition this year. I think that's a real possibility. And I think that could really help our offensive line. There's no way John Schneider is not going to identify, doing his best to identify quality offensive line in the 2025 draft. There's no way he's not, because he already said that he understands the pitchforks are out. He knows the fans are rightfully pissed. He knows that the fans are looking at him and making podcasts and tweets and talking, and Jody is hearing all about this. That he knows that, man, these pitchforks are out for his job. Like, dude, John, these fans, we're pissed. And if you don't fix this offensive line immediately, many of us are going to want you out the door. And already a lot of us want him out of the door. Not me. I love me some John Schneider still. But some of y'all, I get it. And and it's understandable. It's a very reasonable position to hold, that maybe it's time for John to go based off what he's done and what he said about the offensive line and guards. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Now, if anybody wants to come up, I'll open up the panel and we could talk about it. If you want to hop on the panel and talk about it, we can. I want you to. I would love for you to hop on. But if you don't want to hop on, that's fine. That's fine if you don't want to hop on. I'm not hurt. It doesn't bother me. So I'll just leave you there with that, okay? I'll just leave you there with that. So thanks for listening. Please subscribe and hit the thumbs up. I'm going to continue to make more content and better content. And so hopefully you'll be back. This is Seahawks Magic, and we're out of here.